Welcome to a primary election forum featuring candidates for Sheriff of Sacramento County. I am Lois Wright, a member of the League of Women Voters of Sacramento County and the moderator for today's forum. This forum is co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Sacramento County and the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission. We are broadcasting live from the Sacramento Board of Supervisors chambers and being taped for rebroadcast on Metro Cable Channel 14 each Sunday until the June 6th election. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization of women and men established to promote informed, active participation in government. The League carefully studies and takes positions on certain political issues, but does not evaluate, endorse, or oppose any political candidate or party. The format for this forum, if we have two people, will be that each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes for an opening statement. The candidates would then be given up to 2 minutes to respond to questions from our panelists, and then each candidate will then have up to 1.5 minutes to make a closing statement. In the interest of time and decorum, we ask the audience to please hold all applause until the end of the forum. At this time, I would like to introduce the panelists who have agreed to come here today and direct questions to our candidates. Mariva Brown,
Morning.
who writes with the Sacramento Bee, and John Sire, Professor of Government at California State University, Sacramento, CSUS. Thank you for coming. At this point, I will introduce John McGinnis, the candidate for sheriff, who is here. I want you to know that we have invited Mr. Brett Daniels, and we expect that he may come in, and if he does, we will have him join in at that point. But for now, we will proceed with Mr. McGinnis. So I want to welcome everyone and thank you for participating in this forum. We will begin now with your opening statement.
Thank you. First of all, allow me to thank the League and the Commission for providing the voters with this forum. Tell you a little bit about myself. Education-wise, I hold a Bachelor of Arts degree in Criminal Justice and a Master's degree in Emergency Services Administration. I have 25 years of honorable service to the Sheriff's Department, including the last 4 as your undersheriff. Over the years, I've had the privilege of working a variety of very rewarding and challenging assignments, including homicide and CSI. I've worked cases in which I testified and worked in capital punishment cases and actually proved as a critical player in that prosecution of capital cases, rather. In addition to that, I've also worked on the other end of the spectrum as a school resource officer early on in my career, and in assignments that have been intensely community-oriented policing in terms of their orientation. Ironically, I think it's very interesting to note that almost everyone, I believe, recognizes the importance of those capital punishment kinds of cases, but it is the community-oriented policing opportunity that allows us to profoundly impact the quality of life in a community on a daily basis. Very pleased to have the endorsement of the deputy sheriffs, the California Highway Patrol officers, the Sacramento area firefighters, the current elected sheriff, every living former elected sheriff, and the sheriffs of the surrounding counties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will turn now for the first question from Mariva Brown of the Sacramento Bee.
Thank you, and good morning.
Good morning.
What do you see as the most pressing issue facing the Sheriff's Department over the next 4 years?
It's difficult to pare it down to one. There are several issues that I think are very critical, not the least of which is the very makeup of the government structure, the political structure in Sacramento County. We are facing diminishing resources on the horizon in a time when we actually have additional growth in terms of sheer population. Numbers of people living in the community, yet those urban centers where commerce is generated seem to have now gone into the incorporated cities and areas that have been annexed by existing cities. So we are fighting for precious resources to continue our law enforcement effort while the demand on our services increase. I believe that one of the things we need to do is collaborate with the people who actually sit on this Board of Supervisors and in the County Executive's Office to work more efficiently and to be a part of the economic viability solution. Additionally, we have a significant recruiting challenge on the horizon. It's very difficult to find quality peace officer candidates just about anywhere in the state. And while we will not, absolutely will not lower the standard, and continuing to maintain that standard makes it very difficult to get qualified people into the business. But I stand prepared to address those challenges.
Mr. Sire, would you like to address a question to Mr.
Certainly.
McGinnis?
Yes. I'd like to get your ideas about the state of disaster response planning in the county. Things that might occur like earthquakes or floods or terrorist attacks. How well prepared is Sacramento to deal with a disaster?
Thank you, Dr. Sire. And I'll tell you in all candor, it's an area that's caused a lot of concern to me. I recently had some dialogue with members of our congressional delegation in Washington, and we're very involved in the Homeland Security preparation. But I think a close relationship between Homeland Security in general, in a more broad sense, and the reality of confronting a greater likelihood of a challenge here by way of flooding is something for which we need to be prepared. Many of the same responses could be applied to either scenario, but it's important that we realize that here we do have some risk because of our aging levee system and the very nature of the climate here that we saw in the last several months where we had substantial periods of rain. I think we need to be prepared for evacuation and mitigation and consequence management should that occur. I think the likelihood is somewhat remote. Nonetheless, we need to be prepared for it. And the analogy I'll use is when I leave here today, I don't believe I'm going to be involved in a traffic collision, yet I can assure you I will wear my seatbelt and I'll be prepared for the potential of such a thing occurring. We just recently had a Golden Guardian exercise. It was actually a statewide event broken down on a regional level to show the level to which we are prepared to deal with such an emergency. And candidly, the scope of such an event could be so big that it would exceed our resources. But we do have a good comprehensive plan to address most critical likely scenarios.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Brown, another question?
Yes, I have a question about the jail. Jail brutality has been an issue in the news over the past 6 months, and there's a federal lawsuit claiming that it's a condoned practice within the department. And I was wondering what you see as the big issue in the jail, and how would you fix it?
It's a good question. There are several responses I have. First of all, I think things have to be put in context. We have to know that every year on an annual basis, between 55 and 65,000 people are booked in the main jail alone. Or maybe more accurately, there are 55 to 65,000 bookings in the main jail on an annual basis because many of those people are undoubtedly repeat offenders. But in that scenario, you have in excess of 90% of those people are under the influence of something. And I think they all share the common denominator in that they don't want to be there. So you bring that combination of factors together, and the likelihood for some level of conflict is very significant. So while I don't diminish the issue or the concern in any way, shape, or form of excessive force in the jail, I think it properly has to be put in context. There have been 3 and maybe 4 cases that have been extensively covered since October in articles that I believe exceed 30 in terms of number regarding the main jail. Clearly, one of those cases is very recent. It was last November, and it's still going through litigation in terms of the criminal arrest that landed the suspect in jail, and there will undoubtedly be a civil suit to follow. I've viewed the videotapes of that, and I feel very good about the manner in which that inmate was managed. Other cases, there was one in which we paid out and frankly disciplined the officers involved, but the basis of that was not for events occurring inside the jail, but rather the arrest itself on the streets. Significant other cases, the suspects or actually the litigants, the complainant, the plaintiff in the case has unfortunately killed himself since the time of the incident, and that case will be dismissed. So the overall significance and the context of this coverage that we've seen, while I think it's appropriate because the public needs to know what goes on in the jail, I think in context we should know that the problem is not as bad as it may appear.
And do you
Mr.
have?
Sire? Excuse me.
Can I just follow up?
Sure.
Do you
Go ahead.
have? Is there something that needs to be fixed then?
I think any day we go to work, we need to understand and appreciate and embrace the fact that we need to be in a state of perpetual evaluation and training to try to do things better than we did yesterday. I think we also have the potential to get stuck into a mindset. This is how we do business. This is how we've done it for years. Therefore, it's how we're going to continue to do it. Realistically, we need to look at the jail and other parts of our operation and say, what could we do differently to minimize the likelihood of any kind of a conflict? And I think that's the underlying most critical part of what we can do in the coming coming years to minimize the likelihood of problems in the jail. I think it's very important that we continue to recruit the right kind of people to manage that very critical and sensitive environment, and that we need to open the place up in terms of inviting scrutiny, having the public and members of the media have an opportunity to come in and see exactly how the jail is run and what goes on there. It is a very challenging environment, but it's a very serious commitment that we have to make sure that people are protected, fed, sheltered, and clothed, and their safety is maintained while they're in custody.
Thank you.
Mr. Sire.
Roughly 1/2 of the department's vehicles are driven home at night, which some critics would say is an unnecessary cost for the county to have to bear. What's your position on the taking home of department vehicles at night?
It's very simple. I think, first of all, we need to, and we will, establish a very clearly delineated purpose for the assignment of home retention vehicles. If that assignment, if that use of that resource is most appropriate for the department's mission, then it shall continue. In cases where there is no assistance to the mission of the department, then no such home retention vehicle shall be assigned. It's as simple as that. In addition to that, I think procuring and using the most efficient vehicles possible is very critical to our overall success. As fuel prices have increased, that the impact on our overall budget of transportation is greater than it's ever been before, and it's an area where we need to manage those resources effectively. If the individual to whom a vehicle is assigned is subject to call-out, and call-out occurs with some regularity, then the most appropriate use of that resource is to allow it to go home with that individual on a daily basis. If, however, it becomes an employee perk, frankly, we can no longer justify that. So we need to first identify, quantify exactly what it is we want to accomplish, set the rules, and then strictly enforce the rules. I think we do have some potential for improvement there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Brown, would you like to address another question?
Yes, I was wondering how you would improve the department's credibility in the eyes of your constituents.
There again, I think it goes back a little bit to the jail issue. For many years, we've had a high degree of success. I think we enjoyed a very good relationship with the media and with the public as a result of that media relationship, because we've been very open, shared the inner workings of the department very readily with anyone who has an interest. And I think we need to go back to some degree to what we've done in the past, because it did work very effectively. We employ 2,300 individuals, 2,300 human beings, all of which are recruited from the human race, any one of which have the potential to succumb to the imperfections of human beings and do something inappropriate. When that happens, we need to identify it, acknowledge the fact that there's been a problem, and take the appropriate corrective action, and make no bones about it, and be very candid and forthright about it. I think the public appreciates what we do. I know from recent polling data that I've seen that there is a very high degree of acceptance and appreciation on the part of the public of the Sheriff's Department, and I think we can only get better. But a very, very critical formula for that success is openness, and let it be known that accountability exists, and that we take that commitment very seriously.
Mr. Sire, another question?
How would you characterize the state of relationships between the county sheriff's department and city police departments in Sacramento County? Do you have any suggestions for improving the working relationship between county and city law enforcement agencies?
Well, right now at the present time there's a little bit of an unknown, I suppose, because we have 2 new police departments coming online very soon. As for the Sacramento City Police Department, I think the relationship is very good. I'm not proud to tell you that over the years the relationship between the practitioners in the field of the 2 agencies has always been very good, but sometimes there have been clashes at the management end of the organizations. I can tell you right now that I've spent a significant amount of time with top-level managers from the City Police Department this past week. We socialize very well together. We work very harmoniously together, and I think we become a force multiplier in this community because we have established very good relationships. We collaborate on homeland security. We collaborate on disaster preparedness. We've combined our air resources for compatible flight schedules to get maximum air coverage in the region. As for the City of Folsom Police Department, we have an extraordinarily good relationship with the city. We have worked with them in partial contracting on a number of occasions, and I think we'll work very well into the future. The City of Galt, we have frankly some contact, but they are a bit more removed geographically, as is the City of Ileton. In the cities of Elk Grove and Citrus Heights, as of July 1st, they'll be on their own with their own police operations. And I happen to be very good lifetime friends with the chief in Elk Grove. I have a very high opinion of him, very high level of respect. I think we'll do very well together. As for the new chief in Citrus Heights, we've met Chris Boyd. I think he's a fine man, and I think we're going to do very well together. But that's on us, I think, to make those relationships work. And it is incredibly important to the quality of life in this community. We need to erase those geographical boundaries, those imaginary lines, if you will, to the extent possible, and recognize that what affects people inside of an incorporated city and outside affects all of us, and we need to address that. Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Brown, your last question, please.
You have in excess of 1,000, I believe, vacancy, deputy vacancy positions, and I was wondering how you would fill those positions or what you would do to improve the numbers of officers on the street and in the jail.
I'm afraid that number's grossly elevated. Yes, it's quite high. We have about 120 vacant positions in the sworn ranks, and that will be taken care of. We have a mixed blessing on or about the 1st of July because we have 2 contract cities that are going out on their own. We have had to hold vacancies for our people who have not pursued employment with the new police departments and want to come back into the fold. On or about the 1st of July, we will be, for the first time in my career, fully staffed in field operations. We'll be at 100% staffing level. We can completely staff our problem-oriented policing positions, staff all the regular field beats, and I think it gives us a golden opportunity to actually do some very good proactive things in the community. Like I say, it's a mixed blessing because it came with the demise of 2 contracts. And the other somewhat challenging part of that is very shortly after the 1st of July, because baby boomers are now at the point where they're retiring, we're going to see some, I think, significant retirements, and we're going to have additional vacancies to fill. Again, one of my very serious concerns as we look to the future is the ability to continue to recruit and retain quality personnel. The standards are very high, and I may have shared with you before, out of a recent testing process in which we had 1,600 successful people coming out of the written examination, the background psychological, medical, and physical ability program, or testing portions of it, brought that list down to 41 actual candidates that we could employ as peace officers because of the high standard. We cannot deviate from the standard, but it's important that sometimes we have what appears to be conflicting forces. We have diminishing budget. We have, nonetheless, the need to make sure we can continue to recruit and retain good people. So it's a very complex equation, but no, the staffing situation will actually be rectified in July for the short term.
Mr. Sire, your last question, please.
Would you comment, please, on the allocation of patrols and field beats, the methods by which you make the decisions, and whether you think there's any need to make any shifts or alterations in patrol coverage at this point?
Yes, there's been a combination of factors used in the past. Pure population, calls for service, activity in a given district have all been factors. And I think there is a need to, on a continuing basis, look at how we can best improve that staffing formula. Again, we're going to have a very unique opportunity here in the not too distant future. And I think we need to take another look at the deploying of 2 officer cars. As it stands now, we've got, in many cases, almost all of our calls, especially in the evening hours, require a 2-officer response, and we're bringing 2 deputies from 2 different parts of the district in many cases. Why not look at, and we've done this before, where we tested the feasibility with mixed outcomes. And I think just like any other analysis, you have to be very objective and not go into it with a preconceived notion. But I think the idea of deploying officers in 2-person units makes a lot of sense, and I want to find the hard data to see if in fact it pans out. But I think recognizing the fact that there is a benefit to the mere presence of uniformed law enforcement personnel in a community, with or without calls for service having been generated, can actually change the behavior of people in a community, especially where you have commercial corridors, and let people know that the extent to which people feel safe when they go to a retail shopping facility, I think will indicate or dictate how much more time they'll spend there, and that's got to be a part of our formulas in the future.
At this point, I'd like to offer you 1.5 minutes for a closing statement.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and I'm sorry I've been up against the clock in a couple of these responses, but I have a lot of things to say, and I have a hard time not saying them. I also have a hard time saying them in a short time. Suffice it to say that I love my job. I've absolutely enjoyed every minute of my 25 years here, and I look forward to the opportunity to serve at the next level. The last 4 years I've served as the undersheriff, implementing the policy set forth by the elected sheriff. In the next 4 years, I hope to be setting that that policy myself. I'm very pleased to have a significant number of endorsements from community leaders, law enforcement professionals, labor organizations, and individuals throughout this region. And I look forward to the opportunity to serve as your sheriff and implement policies that will take us into the next several years to reduce the incidence of criminality and make people feel safer about the community in which they live. Thank you very much for your time.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Sacramento County and the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission, I want to thank you, Mr. McGinnis, and I want to thank our panelists, Mariva Brown and John Sire, and our volunteer timer for today, Mary Williams, for having made this forum possible. The League of Women Voters firmly believes that a democratic government depends on the informed and active involvement of its citizens. We hope that the insights you have gained from this program will assist you in making your decisions in the upcoming primary election. For voter information and rebroadcast times, please visit our Smart Voter website at smartvoter.org or the League of Women Voters website at lwvsacramento.org. Please vote on June 6th and help make our democracy work.